What's going on, everybody? My name is Colton, and welcome back for Week 3 NFL picks and predictions. Before we dive into it, if you're enjoying the season thus far, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Before we get into Week 3 picks, let's take a look back at Week 2. Went 9-7 overall, nothing crazy. Brings me to 19-13 on the season. No terrible beats, nothing that was crazy bad here. We had a nice pick with the Seahawks winning. The Ravens blew out the Browns. This Jaguars game was probably the worst of all of them because they were winning the game start to finish, nearly finish. Jake Browning obviously came in for the injured Joe Burrow. It was looking like the Jaguars were going to not cakewalk, but get the cover at least, and they end up losing by 4 and missing out. So that was definitely the worst outcome of the week, especially for how most of the game was looking. Missed on the Titans, the Saints, and the Cowboys here. A bad run. Saints were in that game. They were pretty scrappy as I anticipated, but I just thought they could maybe close the deal with, of course, Brock Purdy and a bunch of guys out on the other side. But this was a banger of a game. The Cowboys and Giants. The Cowboys win in overtime, largely thanks to Brandon Aubrey's heroics. Patriots almost gave away the game, but they end up holding on to beat the Dolphins. The Bills blew out the Jets. Broncos, man, they were close. Even if they didn't kick that game-winning field goal, they still wouldn't have covered for the purposes of this, so that's unfortunate. Panthers come all the way back. Probably didn't deserve this one so much. The Cardinals were up 27-3. Panthers made it a game late. Eagles beat the Chiefs. Lock of the week, now 2-0 to start the year. The Falcons taking care of business at Minnesota. Texans, they lost it late as well. And then an interesting thing here. I took the Chargers on the show, and that was my pick, but in my sleeper pick'em pool, for some reason I forgot to change off the Raiders. If you remember what I said last week, I was originally on the Raiders and I switched over to the Chargers before the game time, before I made the video. So the Chargers was my pick, but for some reason I never changed it in the sleeper pool, so I ended up going 8-8 in the sleeper pool, which is unfortunate. I did have the Chargers for the sake of picking the games here, my actual, my official picks. But unfortunate. Overall, 9-7, not horrible, not great. Brings me to a record of 19-13 on the year. That's 2-0 in locks. We hit the Jaguars week 1 and the Falcons week 2. All-time record now 3-19-250. And then all-time locks 23-14-1. So pretty good there. This week is going to be tricky, I'll tell you that right now. There's some tough lines. A couple games that I feel really good about, but we're going to break it all down. Let's start with Thursday Night Football in Buffalo. We get the Miami Dolphins plus 12.5. Against their AFC East Division rival. And I settled here, as you can see, with the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to lay the huge number. We did it last week with the Ravens, and that worked out. The Bills tend to beat up on bad teams historically. My biggest argument for the Dolphins would be Mike McDaniel already coaching for his job. If they get blown out here, I don't know how many more weeks he has left over there. The Dolphins were able to move the ball a little bit against the Patriots. We saw some offensive success, but Tua is still making really poor decisions, really bad turnovers. The Bills just aren't usually a team to let up in the trap games. They're usually pretty good against weaker opponents. So I'm going to lay the 12.5. I know it's a large number. Love the fantasy outlook on this game. I would start just about everybody you normally would on the Bills offense. The obvious ones, James Cooks, Josh Allen, all the locks, no matter who they're playing. But I also like guys like Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid if you need a tight end. I think there's going to be a lot of offense in this game. Dolphins on the other side, I think Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are startable. This game might go over the total. I think it's 49. Part of me could see this being an absolute the Dolphins do nothing and it's 35-7 rout, but I think more likely is that it's a high-scoring game. We get a 34-20 type thing. The Bills eke out the cover. The Dolphins move the ball a little bit, and Mike McDaniel keeps his job for now. All right, next up we got the Packers and the Browns. I am taking the Browns plus 7.5 at home here. This feels like it's going to be a close game because I think everybody's going to be on the Packers for good reason. They have been one of the best teams in the NFL for the first 2 weeks, but in Cleveland, the defense of Cleveland is playing pretty damn good football. I know they gave up 41 points last week, so you might be like, how are they playing good football? Well, the yardage discrepancy for the Browns is pretty insane. They are outgaining their opponent the first 2 weeks by quite a bit. A large part thanks to the defense. They're not giving up huge chunk plays. The Ravens got to them in the second half and ran up the score, so it looked a lot uglier than it really was. I don't know. I think the Browns are going to be sneaky in this game. I think the Packers win, but 7.5 is just a little too much. That hook is big. Give me the Browns to cover at home. Going back to the well here with the Titans at plus 3.5. This was a trend last year with me. I took the Titans way too much. Took them last week against the Rams, and they really were alive to cover that game for the majority of it, but They fall short. Cam Ward has shown some flashes. Eli Manor is emerging as a pretty good weapon for Cam Ward. You got guys like Calvin Ridley and Tyler Lockett still there. I think they're going to move the ball on this Colts team. The Colts have to regress to the mean at some point here. I mean, they are looking so great to start the year. And I'm not saying I was wrong on them already. I think I can already say that. I had them winning like 5 games. They're going to be much better. They're going to compete for a playoff spot. That being said, I don't think they're as good as these first 2 weeks have shown. Daniel Jones has been great. Indiana Jones, as they're calling him, he's moving the ball up and down the field. They have not punted once, which, again, doesn't really feel like a real stat through 2 weeks with Daniel Jones and the Colts. But, they got a lot of weapons on this team. Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, my guy Tyler Warren, who I'm a huge fan of. I would start Tyler Warren for sure. Jonathan Taylor, obviously. I would look to probably start Michael Pittman Jr., but that being said, I do think the Titans contend in this game, and I actually think the Titans might upset them. You're giving me 3.5 points at home. I'm going to take the Tennessee Titans. I would start Eli Manor. I think he's going to continue to improve, and he's already had 2 pretty decent weeks. So week 1, he only had a couple catches, but he had like 7 targets. They are looking for him a lot. So give me the Titans plus 3.5. They'll keep it close. Then we got the Bengals and the Vikings. The Vikings are laying 2.5 points at home. Now, this is the backup quarterback game already because Jake Browning is in for Joe Burrow. And then on the other side, Carson Wentz is taking over for J.J. McCarthy. McCarthy's injury, not long-term like Burrow's will be. I love this spot for the Vikings. I was off them last week. I actually made the Falcons my lock, like I said. This week, coming home with Carson Wentz. Now, I think the biggest issue right now is J.J. McCarthy's just not developed. Carson Wentz goes into this offense, which has a lot of pieces around it. Still no Jordan Addison, but they got enough weapons with Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, Adam Thielen. I think they moved the ball pretty successfully against a rather weak Bengals defense. Jake Browning was making some very poor throws. I think against a Brian Flores defense, I think this could get away from the Bengals. I think the Vikings could actually lay down the hammer here and win by 14 to 21 points. So I'm going to take the Vikings minus 2.5. Brings us to the Steelers and the Patriots. This is a really tough one, a game that I was back and forth on. I ended up settling with the Steelers. I think the Patriots are just a little lackluster right now. They're not as impressive as I thought they'd be out of the gate under Mike Vrabel. I understand it'll take time. Drake May's still young. I think they'll be okay. I don't know. I trust the Steelers a little bit more. I think the defense has to play better for Pittsburgh. They have not looked great through 2 weeks. I really like Jalen Warren from a fantasy perspective this week. I know I didn't like him last week. He ended up doing okay. I think he's going to have a great game. I think DK has a pretty good game. I think the Steelers... I think this game's going to be pretty ugly. I'm thinking like 23-20, something along those lines. I'll take the Steelers to eke out the win on the road. I'll take the plus 1.5. We got the Rams and the Eagles. I'm on the Rams here plus 3.5. Now, the Eagles are 2-0. They're obviously a great team. That being said, they are just a couple of moments away from being 0-2, and I know you can't really play that game, but week 1, CeeDee Lamb's dropping several passes that easily could have helped the Cowboys win that game. And then week 2, Travis Kelce drops the ball in the end zone, and that leads to a complete momentum shift, and the Eagles end up icing that game and winning by 3. So the Eagles have had some concerns, I think. Are the Eagles a great team? Yes. Are they going to make the playoffs? I would think so, yes. That being said, in this spot, the Rams are... Remember the playoff game last year? They were very close to beating Philadelphia in that snow game. I think they match up pretty well with the Eagles. I just don't want to lay 3 in a hook with the Eagles based on the 2-week sample size we have right now. A.J. Brown has like 6 catches for 35 yards or something like that. They're not using him much. Jalen Hurts didn't even have 100 yards or had like right around 100 yards last week. I know the game script isn't calling for that right now, but I think in this game it will. And I just think there might be some hiccups for the Eagles. Maybe they get out of there with a win. Maybe they get a 3-point win. I think it's that type of game. I'll take the 3.5 with the Rams on the road, and I actually do think they win this football game. Moving right along, we go down south to Tampa. The Buccaneers laying 6.5 at home against the Jets. This feels like a very quote-unquote square pick, but I'm taking the Buccaneers minus 6.5. I just can't bet the Jets right now. They look right back to the usual Jets. No Justin Fields this week. It'll be Tyrod Taylor getting the keys. He's fine, but I just don't think they're going to have much success. I think they'll score more than they did last week with that abysmal performance against the Bills. I'm going to ride with Baker Mayfield and Bucky Irving in this Buccaneers offense. That looks pretty good. Baker kind of struggled in week 1. They didn't score a lot of points last week. I think this might be the game where the Bucs offense really shows what they can do. The defense is pretty solid, so I think the Bucs are just a well-rounded team right now, like just a clear few tiers above the New York Jets, who let's be honest, it's going to be another really rough year for New York Jets fans. I also like Igbuka to have a nice week in Tampa there in the home opener. All right, next up we got the Raiders and Commanders. Now I'm recording this Thursday. I don't have an official word on Jaden Daniels, I don't believe yet. I don't think they've announced his status. Either way, I'm going to take the Commanders. I had to commit to it one way or another. The Raiders really, really concerned me last week. Geno Smith looked like pre-Seattle Geno Smith. He was making ill-advised throw after ill-advised throw. Brock Bowers was still clearly shaken up. If, he has a whole nother week to get prepared here, I think he'll have a better day. But I don't know. I don't trust the Raiders. I actually kind of like the over in this game. I think it's 44.5 or something around there. But I think the Commanders bounce back after a tough Thursday night loss to a very good Packers team. So I think the Commanders roll here. I think they win by like 10, so I'll take them. Falcons and the Panthers, another one I was back and forth on. This 5.5 line has really got me stumped. I lost a couple of the 5.5 point spreads last week with the Titans and the Bears and the Cowboys. I was on the wrong side of all three of those. So try to right the ship here. I'm going to go back to the Panthers. They covered for me last week in that crazy near comeback. Bryce Young looked really good in the second half, was starting to make throws. He still kind of holds the ball too long. Every time he takes a snap in a high leverage moment, you kind of feel panicked because you just don't know if he's going to make the right decision. He's very hit or miss in those moments. He had a really nice throw on a 4th and 16. He had, obviously the whole fourth quarter was pretty good. I mean, they came roaring back against a pretty decent Cardinals team. So there's stuff there, but they make so many mistakes early in games that it's hard to feel good about taking the Panthers whenever it's, especially less than a touchdown, but I'm going to do it anyway. I like what the Falcons are doing, but I think on the road here, Carolina gets the home opener. I think they do enough here at home to at least keep it close and maybe even eke out a win. All right, next up, a game I'm feeling pretty good about. I'm taking the Texans plus 1.5 on the road in Jacksonville. I've been pretty high on Jacksonville. I've taken them each of the first 2 weeks. They were my lock week 1, and they covered. Last week they had the blown lead to the Bengals, but here I'm all on the Texans. I don't think they're going 0-3. I think there's too much talent. This defense is too good. I think this is a game where C.J. Stroud can kind of right the ship, push the ball down the field. The Jaguars are still susceptible on defense. This is not a complete defense by any means. I think we see some success for the Texans offense that they desperately need, because you lose this game to a division opponent, you're looking up at 0-3 in a division that is going to be much improved than what we thought in the preseason. I mean, the Jaguars are decent. The Colts are clearly pretty good. The Titans will be frisky with Cam Ward. So the Texans need this game. I think this is just a hungrier team on the road that's going to go into Jacksonville and win by any means necessary. Next up, I got the Broncos in a tight one with the Chargers. I have them plus 2.5 on the road. Now, the Chargers are 2-0. They've had 2 solid division victories. This is their 3rd straight divisional game. I think this is a spot where a lot of people are going to be in the Chargers. And I actually, upon really looking at this game, listening to some shows, I kind of got swayed here to the Broncos side, and I'm kind of feeling pretty good about Denver on the road. I think after how Denver lost last week, coupled with the fact that the Chargers really were not pushed at all on Monday Night Football, I think a lot of people clearly hear 79% on the Chargers. I think that's too much of an overreaction. I think these teams are pretty even. I think the Broncos will bounce back here. I think they'll go into LA really pissed about how that whole leverage penalty, and they end up losing to the Colts late, how that whole thing unfolded. I think they'll be very angry, and I think they win this game on the road, so I'll take the 2.5. Next up, we got the boys, the Seahawks at home, laying 7.5. I'm going to take them to beat the Saints by a comfortable margin. A lot of people are saying this is reminiscent of the Giants game last year, where the Seahawks lose to the Giants in ugly fashion, and it ends up pretty much costing them the playoffs because of their tiebreaker with the Rams for the division. I don't see it that way this year. I think the Seahawks defense is much improved. I don't think they'll allow that to happen. Sam Darnold had a pretty great week a week ago against the Steelers. JSN has been balling. I think the Seahawks team is very complete. I don't think they're going to slip up in a trap game to Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler is yet to win an NFL game. I really hope this isn't a magical turnaround for him this week. I think the Seahawks do enough. I will take them minus 7.5. It's a big number, but the Seahawks have been way better on the road too for some reason for the past, 2 years. I think they really need this home victory to be like a, no questions, never a doubt. They need to beat the Saints from the first quarter to the fourth quarter. They need to play a full 60-minute game of great football, and I think they will here. We got the Cowboys and the Bears. Another toss-up, but for me, it's like I have to trust the Cowboys here. They have a much better offense. The Bears are still looking like that dysfunctional franchise that they always appear to be. I did trust Ben Johnson a lot. It's only 2 weeks. I'm not saying I'm out on the Bears being a decent football team, But right now, I have to see it before I start picking the Bears all the time. So I'll take the Cowboys. I think their offense is, with George Pickens on the other side of CeeDee Lamb, I think it really opens things up. Jake Ferguson had a great game. I would really back him in fantasy. He's such an underrated tight end. I think the Cowboys move the ball pretty well at Soldier Field on Sunday. Another tricky one because of all the Niners injuries here. I'm going with the Cardinals to start 3-0. I am taking them plus 1.5. It's crazy that it sucks that the whole Seahawks division is 2-0 so far, other than them. But here, I think they go into San Francisco. This is a game, I think they beat them. Was it last year the Cardinals had a good showing in San Francisco? It was a recent game where Kyler finally really showed up. I don't know. I think the defense is really going to be a factor here for the Cardinals. I think they'll be able to hold the Niners and limit what they want to do. The injuries are still going to be the main reason for me fading the 49ers here, but not a lot of analysis here. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. needs a good game. He needs just a go-off game. Not sure this is going to be it, but I still think he gets like 15 to 20 fantasy points. I think Kyler Murray force-feeds him the ball here. I think Trey McBride is a good candidate for an anytime touchdown. So I think the Cardinals win this NFC West matchup on the road. Sunday Night Football, Chiefs and the Giants. I have to take the Chiefs. They're 0-2. They're not going to be 0-3. I guess you could make the argument that the Giants keep this close, especially after last week, but I think that's another overreaction week-to-week type of thing. I'm going to lay the 5.5 points with the Chiefs, not think too much about it. They got to right the ship. They're getting some guys back soon. They don't want to, once Rashee Rice and stuff comes back in week 6, they don't want to be, 2-4. I think they know what's at stake here. You can't start 0-3 in that tough division. They will make sure they win and take care of business against the lowly Giants. Shout out Russell Wilson, though. Amazing game. The haters are always out for Russell Wilson, but he had a turn back the clock type of game. That was like a reminiscent of the time in Seattle, so that was really cool to see. And lastly, Monday Night Football. This is funny because last Monday night I was flip-flopping. This one I was also kind of flip-flopping because I like the Ravens to win this game, but I actually think it's going to be pretty close. I think this could be like a 34-30 thriller, and I think the Lions can keep it within that 5.5 number. The Lions, they really flexed their muscles last week. They showed that they were still very capable without Ben Johnson to move the football, to score points, and they bounced back from a tough Week 1 loss to the Packers. So I think they keep this close. I think the Ravens are the better team, but I will take the Lions plus 5.5. And you see, I think a pretty high-scoring game as well. Lock of the week as we try to go 3-0 in locks to begin the year. To do so, we are going to take the Houston Texans. This is just a desperation spot. I know it's only Week 3, but I think this is as desperate as a team can be. I think the Texans are going to go into Jacksonville and get the job done. So give me the Texans as my lock of the week. Other than that, that's going to do it for this one, guys. I will see you in Week 4. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you all very soon.